All right, welcome everybody to ENTERPRISE.expert, a community of experts in enterprise level technology. This is the monthly webinar for May 2016. Today's episode, it's about QuickBooks Enterprise Reporting, also known as QBAR, QuickBooks Enterprise Advanced Reporting, and we're going to talk about specifically creating custom reports from scratch. All right, so let's get started here. So today's topic is going to be the first 10 minutes. We're going to do a little bit of introduction about Enterprise Expert and some of the recommended events and resources related to the things that we talk about and other accounting industry, technology type of things. Then we'll do about 5-minute introduction on what QuickBooks Enterprise Advanced Reporting is. It's sort of just general information. Then we'll do the full demonstration, which will be about 30 to 40 minutes. And then we'll leave the last 5 minutes for questions and answers. So yeah, it will be about 10-15 minutes until we actually jump into the product because we have to go over some things. Okay, so what is Enterprise Expert, or who is Enterprise.expert? We're a community of experts in the enterprise level technology. One of our main communication places that we're going to be communicating our ideas and information about this enterprise level technology will be this webinar. So for over 100 of you that are attending live, you are in the webinar. And then the enterprise.expert website and the blog is still under construction, but this is going to be a place where we're going to put news and reviews and all the interesting things that we're going to be developing content along the way. And also the Facebook group. That's probably the best place for you to continue this conversation, ask more questions, things like that. And we set up a Twitter account. We're also going to be using that as well. All right. So what does Enterprise Expert do? So pretty much by enterprise, I'm referring to medium-sized businesses that rely heavily on technology to run the operation. So that's really my focus. It's companies that are already up and running. They have a proven concept and they need to upgrade the technology or integrate the technologies to work better. By technology, I'm most specifically talking about hardware, software, cloud solutions. Our main focus is accounting software, ERP software, and anything with a database. So anything with a central database where all the information about the company's operations are being run from, that's going to be where we're going to be centric as. And by expert, it's really anyone that wants to join the community, join the chat, the blog, the Facebook group, the webinars, share your knowledge, share your learnings, ask questions, and then we can help each other serve our clients better. If you are in the enterprise consulting arm, or if you're just a business owner or a business manager running the technology, the ideas that we can share with you and you share with us and that sort of thing. So the webinar series is monthly, every third Wednesday of every month. All you have to do is register once. I know a lot of you came to last month's webinar, and you will access all the episodes. You will have an email with the recording if you miss it, and so forth. We may have a special episode with some collaborated or sponsored content that will be outside of the monthly webinar, so you will get invitations to that as well. If you are a accountant or a QuickBooks Pro advisor, we currently do not provide continuing education credit. So this is something that you do just for personal knowledge. Right now, we're not doing any continuing education on these webinars. We have a strong focus on enterprise level accounting and ERP software. This year for 2016, we're going to be featuring QuickBooks Enterprise in depth, and then we're going to be moving on to other software that's not QuickBooks Enterprise, maybe apps that integrate with QuickBooks Enterprise, maybe even competitors of QuickBooks Enterprise and so forth. But for the time being, we have a really strong focus on QuickBooks Enterprise. That's where we are focusing all the efforts in. And we may have a little bit of coverage on non-accounting software, things like hardware and stuff like that, right? So about me, my name is Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA, a certified information technology professional. I'm based out of Miami. My firm does accounting and integrated technologies consulting. If you need to reach me for whatever reason, Hector at GarciaCPA.com. And that's enough for me. Other recommended events. There's another webinar series that happens every other Thursday. It's called QB Power Hour, all about QuickBooks, 100% about QuickBooks. And in 2 weeks, on Thursday, June 2nd, we will do an episode on QuickBooks Enterprise inventory, assembly, and manufacturing. So if you work with QuickBooks Enterprise heavily and you're working with assembly type of companies and manufacturing, you're gonna love that particular episode. And then next week at the Bahamas, we have the annual conference for QuickBooks Pro Advisors. I will be teaching an advanced reporting class there. Okay. All right. So today's episode, creating reports from scratch. Next month, we're going to take some use cases. So I'm going to take some of your feedback that I will get on the question and answers, on the emails, on the Facebook group, on the live class that I'm going to teach in the Bahamas next week about some use cases. And I'm going to build a whole bunch of custom reports based on requests. And then we're going to show you how I build all those custom reports on next month. So today's more about creating reports from scratch and some ideas around creating the reports. And then we're going to use some actual use cases next month. And then we're going to go on to other QuickBooks topics. July 20th, we'll talk about advanced inventory and advanced pricing. I meant to put, that's not advanced reporting, that's advanced pricing. Apologize for that because we are doing advanced reporting today. So that would be advanced pricing. So that's July will be advanced reporting and advanced pricing. Then August, we're going to go to more manufacturing process topics, which will be very similar than the June class. All right, so let's jump into QuickBooks Enterprise and why we talk about advanced reporting, or why do we even bother spending so much time learning advanced reporting. So number one, QuickBooks Enterprise is limited to two types of reports: the transaction detail report and the custom summary report. One of the challenges that we have is that there are situations where I may want summary information and detailed information combined, and I don't want to look at two reports to look at this information. So that's something that QBAR can do, advanced reporting can do really, really well. So that's one of the main pain points that it solves. The other pain point that it solves is that even within QuickBooks reports, you are limited to maybe 80% of the fields. And in advanced reporting, you have access to 95% of the fields. So you have access to a lot more information that you cannot do just with standard QuickBooks reports. Also, calculated fields are a big deal. QuickBooks standard reporting cannot do calculated fields where advanced reporting can. Another issue is if you're working with a medium-sized company, large company that has a lot of data, you notice that when you try to pull long reports or extensive reports with a lot of information, it slows down the user experience a lot. I mean, the QuickBooks really slows down as it's trying to calculate data from different transactions. So that's something that QuickBooks Advanced Reporting is set out to solve as well. So those are the limitations that QuickBooks has. Now, once you work with advanced reporting, there's another really important set of limitations you have to keep in mind. Number one, you have to have QuickBooks Enterprise. That's for sure. You have to have QuickBooks Enterprise, and it has to be 2014 with an active service plan or above. So 15, 16, that would all have it. You must be in multi-user mode for it to work. Only if you only have one QuickBooks Enterprise user, that's fine. It will still work, but you must be in multi-user mode. The QuickBooks user, the QuickBooks Advanced Reporting user, the one pulling the reports, will have access to all the data. So you cannot tell QuickBooks, listen, this person can pull advanced reports, but cannot see employee information. You don't have that capacity. So if you give someone access to QBAR, to advanced reporting, they will have access to everything. The other really important thing is the most evident of it all, is that it doesn't look or feel like QuickBooks in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, you cannot use any of your QuickBooks instincts to say, oh, I can figure this out. It just doesn't work that way. It's a whole other piece of software called QlikView that was modified to adjust to QuickBooks data. So it's a very steep learning curve, and it means that you must practice this for many hours in order for you to feel comfortable with it. Now, the database has to be refreshed. So again, it's not working off a live QuickBooks data. It refreshes the database and it creates a duplicate, a clone version of the database, so it doesn't slow down QuickBooks while you're pulling data, which is really good. And one of the other limitations is I cannot consolidate data from multiple files, like QCube can, which is one of the third-party apps that was solving the issues that QBAR was solving a few years ago, but that would be an add-on. QCube would be an add-on where advanced reporting is included with QuickBooks Enterprise. Now, some of the important features of QBAR: it's free with a QuickBooks Enterprise subscription. has over 1,200 data fields from QuickBooks compared to maybe about 50 that you have in a standard QuickBooks report. It is a clone database, so it will not affect QuickBooks performance in any way, and it can render very large reports extremely fast. It is dashboard style, so you can actually technically pull multiple reports or summarize data or graph data all combined into a single report or single dashboard. Pivot tables are easy to understand by most Excel users. So that's what I like about the fact that you can do pivot tables. And then the expressions, which is like the part where most people get really, really confused at, is the part where we actually write formula. So we're going to write sort of a formula that looks a little bit like an Excel formula, but almost also like a database query formula. So there's a lot of depth behind building expressions, and we'll do some examples of that. Again, if this is your very first time watching a QuickBooks Advanced Reporting video or webinar, keep in mind there are 4 other episodes in 4 other circumstances that I recorded videos, and they're all in YouTube. So I will send you an email with all these links so you can review them later. Like, again, one video is not enough. You have to review multiple sources. Now, if you don't have QuickBooks Enterprise or you want to buy QuickBooks Enterprise, you can work through any reseller in the country. You can work through Intuit directly. If for whatever reason you want to ask me a question about it, purchase it through my organization, there's my phone number, there's my email. Take a picture of that. I'll send you that contact info as well. But obviously, you're welcome to use any QuickBooks reseller, or you can go through Intuit directly. Okay, so let's jump into the actual concept of building reports from scratch. This is what we're going to do. And these are the steps that you need to take if you're going to follow along in your own computer, or if you're going to do it later. First thing you want to do is we want to start with a blank dashboard. So we're going to click on the reports menu, click on new, and then we're going to enable 3 fields that are already there. One is current selection, search all fields, and report title. And I'll show you that will be in the demonstration. Then we want to add basically 2 elements, 2 really important elements. One is going to be the chart. The chart is the data, the table, the report itself, what most people call the report. Again, advanced reporting is a dashboard. Inside the dashboard, you will have a report. That's what they refer to as the chart. The list box will be your filter, right? Because if you don't run a list box or you don't run a filter, it will show you every piece of data that's available in QuickBooks. So those are the 2 elements we're going to think about, chart and list box. So let's go into the product here. And I already had QuickBooks Enterprise Enterprise Reporting up and running. Let me close it just to give you some background. We did have about 30% of you that had never seen it before. So you will have to go in the reports menu, okay? So we click on the reports menu and then click on advanced reporting. Again, also notice that I'm under multi-user mode. So I have to be in multi-user mode. So I'm going to go ahead and click on advanced reporting, and it will ask me, do you want to update the database, which means the last time I did an update, and now if there's any transactions that were created in between those 2 updates, do I want those new transactions to show? So at this point, I'm going to click skip these because that could take a few minutes. Some very large databases, it could take up to an hour. Okay, let me go ahead and close this, and I'll go ahead and maximize the screen, make it a lot more easier to work with. All right, so to start with a new report, we click on the reports menu up in the top, and then we click on new. So that's kind of the first step. We spent some time last month talking about customizing the starter report. So what I opened here was my starter report list. We actually, the entire episode of last month was about customizing starter reports. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to be doing 100% reports being built from scratch. Okay, so the first thing I mentioned on the slides is we're going to go ahead and double click on current selection. That's going to be right here under the text and utility. And this library, these are some sort of ready to use elements for you, but they're not all of them, right? So you're not limited to the stuff that's in here. These are just suggested elements. So we're going to go ahead and double click on current selection. Okay, so that's going to blank out my dashboard, and it's going to open up this box. And this box, in a nutshell, will show you every single active filter, active filter. We'll talk about filters that has to do with list boxes there in a second. The next one I'm going to go ahead and do is report title. So I'm going to go ahead and double click report title. That opens up, that puts a report title there. I can move it around. I can really put it anywhere I want. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it here on the left side. Okay, and then I'm going to double click on search all fields. That is just very useful whenever I have a big data and I want to maybe search within that. That search box becomes really handy. So this is step one into creating a custom report with those three elements: current selection, report title, and search all fields. We'll change the name of report title later on. Now let's talk about list boxes. So that's the next piece. So think of list boxes as your filters. Okay, hopefully everybody here that's attending live, it's a QuickBooks user, a QuickBooks user with experience, right? That way you can relate to this, right? You can definitely relate to this. Okay, so the list boxes are going to be the filters, and we're going to do customer, vendor, account type, item, transactions date, transaction type. Those are the ones that I recommend. So let's start by doing those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here on anywhere in the white space, really. So I'm going to right click and then click on new sheet object. So new sheet object. And then I'm going to click on list box. Again, if you have QuickBooks experience, you notice that no QuickBooks experience could ever, lead you to saying, oh yeah, I'm sure that's what filters mean, right? So this is something that you have to learn something new from scratch. So we're going to do a new list box, and then we're going to have this box. Now, there's a lot of information that we can derive from here. At the moment, we're sort of going to ignore everything else around it. We're just going to focus on the field. Okay, so the field itself is what information within QuickBooks, or what group of information within QuickBooks would you like for you to filter by. So as we mentioned on the PowerPoint, customer name, vendor name, those are really useful, right? So I'm going to look for that field. And again, you have to now know the field name. So you're going to have to know your field names to be able to achieve this. So you could do a little bit of search, but you are going to have to know the field name. So one of them is going to be customer full name. So we'll look at that, customer dot full name. Where are you? Customer dot full name. Okay, so that's one of my fields. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. Okay, so there's all my customer names, and these are my customers from QuickBooks, right? So if I go into just regular QuickBooks here, and then I go into my customers menu and click on Customer Center, that's my entire customer list from here. So the customer list in QuickBooks is the customer list that's showing up on this list box. Okay, so that was the first filter, the first list box that we did. Now I'm going to double click on the library section here on the left side, double click on list box. And then I'm going to have some options sort of ready made for me. So I may not have to do the whole right click, new sheet object, and list box for some of them, because some of them are just really, they're handy and they're ready to go here. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and double click on vendors. Okay, so that's going to give me a new list box with my vendors. So I have customers, vendors. I'm going to go down and do class. Okay, class is also very commonly used as a filter. So we're going to put that here. And again, you notice that I can put them anywhere I want, really, again, because it is a dashboard. Okay, so I'm basically taking all the elements that are essentially going to be my my filters. Okay, so I got my transaction type, I got my type of item, I got my vendor, I got my customer. Let me get my item list in here too. Okay, there we go. So I have a lot of elements here that I can filter by. So that's list boxes in a nutshell. Okay, again, to create a list box from scratch, if they're not part of this list, we're going to right click, go to a new sheet object, and then click on list box. Now, another list box I really like that is actually not available on my list box library on the left side is my transaction date. Okay, that's actually one of the most relevant things out there. So I'm going to go down to transactions. Okay, so I'm going to go down to hit here transactions, and then I'm going to go to TXN date. So I'm looking for transactions, TXN date. So I'm going to go down, and I'm going to give you a tip on how to research these fields outside of this software, right? Because right now, unfortunately, the software doesn't have a real friendly way to search within it, but I'm going to show you how you can search these really, really well. So right here, transactions date, and I hit OK. And these are pretty much all of the filters that I'm going to work with. Okay, so that's it with list boxes. Okay, I'm going to show you something here real quick. If you go to this website, okay, I have two websites I'm going to recommend you. One is going to be QBAR.intuitlabs.com, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the chat box. That way you can see it there if you're watching the webinar live. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste both of these, and that way you can download it as we go. So if you go to the first one, QBAR.intuitlabs.com, and then you click on where it says resources. So you click on resources and you scroll down. There's a little link there that says data dictionary Excel. So when you click on data dictionary Excel, I'll click on that. It's going to basically open up a spreadsheet that the folks from QuickBooks put together that contains every single field that is in QuickBooks with the original table, with the field name, with the description. Okay, so you can search within your Excel file and try to see if you're looking for a particular field, you can search it within there. So that's actually an extremely important resource. Now, what I did is I went the extra mile. I took that spreadsheet and I uploaded it into my website, and I made it searchable. So for example, if I'm looking for preferred vendor, I would come here on the search box and type PREF, whatever, and this will tell me what my custom fields are. So for example, if I'm looking for my preferred vendor name, you see right here, this will be called item dot preferred vendor full name. So that's how I know what to search it by the table and the field. Okay, so the table and the field. So you can either just download the Excel file from the website or go to my website to search it within there. I'm going to be updating that all the time. I copy and pasted the link in the chat box. Okay. Anyway, so don't feel so intimidated by knowing this list boxes and these expressions and these table names. I know it's overwhelming, but after a while, it'll just become second nature. So let me organize this here in a way that I can have a lot more space in my dashboard. That way I can, as I work the reports, I can then use this later on. Okay, perfect. So we're going to do now on the right side, we're going to create our table or our pivot table that's going to contain the transactions that I'm creating. So I'm going to right click anywhere on the white space. Again, we just right click anywhere on the white space. We click on new sheet object, and then we're going to click on chart. Now, chart could also be a pivot table. The problem is that most of us, when we think of the word chart, and I certainly did when somebody told me you got to go to chart, I think of the graph. I think of a bar graph, I think of a line graph. So in the chart category, it also includes all the line and bar graphs, but it also includes the pivot table. So here on this little icon here, it's just something you have to know. You have to click on this little icon called pivot table, and then we're going to give it a name. Let's just call it transactions. So when I give the chart a name, it's called transactions, and then I'm going to choose a pivot table, which is going to give me pretty much like a spreadsheet, not a graphical chart. Then I'm going to click on next. So this is the part where it gets a little bit intimidating because I have to go now back to searching, the specific field that I want to put there in the dimensions. So think of dimensions as your group or your summary, or think of it as your columns or your rows when putting a report together. So let's say I want to start with transaction type. So I want my first dimension to be transaction type. So I'm going to have to scroll down, go all the way down to transaction type. Okay, again, you can use that spreadsheet or that website to search them to then know what they are. So we're going to go to transaction type, and that is called transactions TXN type. Okay, that's what it's called. Okay, if you want to filter these by table, tables are the grouping of the fields. We could just filter by transactions, and then only within. So the only thing I'm going to see here is my transactions. And I can look for the table I want, which is TXN type, and then I click add. Again, my dimension is my general group. So we're going to have transactions type as my general group. Okay, then I'm going to hit on next. And then automatically a pop-up is going to say, hey, put your expression. Now, this is the part that unfortunately it gets a little bit hairy because you have to start typing formulas now at this point. So there isn't a lot of easy way to move through. You have to do a formula no matter what, just because an expression it's a field that contains data, but you may want to add the data or summarize the data. So I'm going to start by doing a sum formula, and this is just think of like an Excel sum formula, and inside this sum formula, so all you have to know, so write this down, all you have to know is remember to type SUM open bracket. Right? At that point, that's all you have to remember. Then you go into that spreadsheet or that website to look for the particular field, and what we're looking for is transactions dot amount with sign, right? So if it's a positive number or a negative number, that's going to show up here. So all I had to do is type transactions dot amount with sign, or I could have gone this way. I'm just going to delete that here. I could have gone down here to the table, go down to the transactions group, right? My transactions table, and then under the field, again, look for transactions amount with sign. So I'm going to go all the way down to transactions amount with sign. Where are you? Amount with sign. And then I could have just hit paste. So that is an option if you don't want to just start typing in there, if you want to find them through the table and field. And then at the end, just remember to close that bracket. I did some spaces there to just make it a little bit easier to read. So this is the one part that most people just kind of, they just say, forget it, I'm not doing advanced reporting, I have to write code. Yeah, it is a little bit like writing code, but this is really all you need to get started with. So we'll hit OK, and then we'll hit finish. Now we're not quite ready yet. My table just got started. Just to give you an idea of the type of information that I'm seeing here. So I'm seeing bills, bill payment check, credit card estimates, invoices. I'm seeing all my transactions types. And then under some transactions, which is the second column here, which in this case is the expression, is basically adding up every single amount that it's part of that transaction. Now, so to start making this look a lot better and neater, I'm going to go ahead and right click on the bar of the table, the top bar. I'm going to go ahead and click on properties, and then I'm going to play with the font a little bit. Just for the sake of the webinar too, I think it's good to have a little bit bigger font. So I'm going to put 12 in there and hit apply. I think that will help visually make the report a lot bigger, especially through the video recording or the webinar. The other thing I'll do is the formatting. So I'm going to right click on the top bar there, click properties, and then I'm going to click on number, and then I'm going to make this money. Okay, but by doing that, it gives me standard money format. So I think it's just going to be a lot easier to read and understand from here. So, okay, so there we go. So we have that. Let me make the font a little bit bigger so we don't get that that limitation there. Let me go back to font and maybe make it 10. Okay, that way we don't have information being truncated. There we go. Okay, so I have all my transactions with amounts. Right now we don't know contextually which transactions is it exactly. At this point, this is a report. This is my report. I can work with this, and I can say, well, I want to see that type of summary information for a particular class. So I can just click on a class on the left, and then we're going to see information limited to just that particular class that I'm selecting. So you can see as I click on any of these classes, these numbers move around. Now this report doesn't make a lot of sense because I'm not seeing items, accounts, customers, vendors. I'm just seeing a transaction type and a total. So it's not really giving me that much information, but there are situations where my report needs to be that summarized, and that's it. So let's start creating more dimensions. So we start getting more and more information. So let me go ahead, and here where it says current selection on the left side, I'm going to go ahead and click on that little eraser button. That way I unselect any open filter that I have there. I'm going to go back into my transactions pivot table. I'm going to click on the top bar there and click on properties. And then I'm going to go back into my dimensions. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we have transactions type. That is my first dimension. Okay, now I'm going to give it a label just to make it a little bit easier to read. So I'm just going to call this type. Okay, that way when I look at the report, it just has the word type in it. It's a little bit easier to read. Okay, then I'm going to go down to transaction reference number. Okay, so that's going to give me my bills by transaction reference number. So I'm going to go all the way down here, go to my transactions tab. Again, if I would have gone to this website and I type here ref, okay, I'm going to see everything with the word ref. And if I start typing more like reference, I can then narrow down to what I'm looking for, right? So if I'm looking for a particular reference, so I can do it reference number. As I do more search, maybe I could put number here. Let me put NUM. Okay, and that should be able to find them there. So I can search through this list box here to see if I find the specific field I'm looking for. So the field I was looking for is transaction ref number. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the transactions table, and then I'm going to go to transactions dot ref number. So I'm going to scroll all the way down, ref number. There you go. And again, after a while, you will know what these are from scratch. So we'll go to add. So that will be my second dimension. So we have transaction type, reference number, and then I'm going to hit on apply. Now, you notice that immediately what happens is this little plus signs come in. This is a collapsed pivot table. So if I want to open any of them in particular, I have to open them individually. See, so I have to open them individually and see, what are the total amounts based on the reference number. Now, if I don't want to be opening them manually, I can just right click here on the top of the table, go to properties, and then I can go into, so we're going to go into presentation here. Okay, that's the presentation tab. And we're going to click this little checkbox that says always fully expanded. So basically what always fully expanded does is tell advanced reporting that I don't want to manually expand and collapse those fields. So I just want to show them all. That way, 100% we're going to see all of my transactions there and all of my reference numbers, and I don't have to expand or collapse anything else. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go under the filters here on the left side, and where it says transaction type. Okay, so where it says transaction type, I'm going to scroll down and only show invoice. The minute I click invoice, as I scroll up and down here, we're going to see that there's only invoices here. Naturally, that makes a lot of sense. That's what we wanted to achieve. At that point, since I'm running the invoice type, I may not need that dimension there, but let's leave it there no matter what. The other dimension I probably want to see is my customer. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on properties, and then I'm going to go into dimension, and then I'm going to add my customers as another dimension. So I'm going to go down here to my table. I'm going to select my transactions table, and then I'm going to go down to customer full name. Okay, that works. Go to add, and then I'll click on apply. Okay, and then I'll hit OK. So what do we got now? We have my customer's full name here as the second line after dimensions. Now that doesn't make a lot of sense because if I want to group these by customer, I would have to switch the order of this dimension. So there's two ways for me to switch the order of the dimensions. One of the things I can do is I can just right click on the top bar there, hit properties, and then click on customer full name and click promote. That would just basically switch order. So that's one way of doing it. And the other way could have been just to drag and drop the title like this. See? So if I had dragged and dropped the title like this, that could have been another way for me to do it. So I could drag and drop the title and drag drop the title here back, and then that would do it. Okay, so that's another interesting way of going about that. Give me 1 second here. Okay, just wanted to, there's some questions already, so I'm going to wait until the end to answer some of those questions. Okay, so we started with transaction type as our first dimension, customer as a second dimension, and then the reference number as a third dimension. Now, some of the things that people ask, I mean, there's already a question saying, well, Hector, what if I want to see my customers just the customer's job as a column, and then the customer parent in this case, just Baker's Professional Lighting in this case as a column by itself, and I want to essentially separate the customer and the job for reporting purposes. That actually can be done really easily. So I'm going to right click on the top bar there and hit properties, and then I'm going to go to this customer full name. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So I'm going to click on remove. And then I'm going to look for two particular separate fields. So one is we're going to go to transactions again. I'm going to go to transactions. And then in transactions, I'm going to look for customer name. Again, there's customer name. Okay, I'm going to pick customer name, just customer name, and hit add. And then I hit apply. Okay, actually that one doesn't work. I may have made a mistake on that one. Let me go back for a second, go to properties. That should have been, let me just remove that. I should have just stuck with transactions full name. So I'm sorry about that. Sometimes, there's so many of these that it gets confusing. So I'm going to go back to transaction customer full name, bring that back up. I actually wasn't supposed to get rid of that. But then I'm going to go to a different table. I'm going to scroll up here, and then I'm going to go into my customer table, because the information about the customer in the transaction, the only thing that's there is the full name. But if you go into a different database, the database of customers, QuickBooks can now separate, Advanced Reporting can separate the full name from the job. So in the customers table, we're going to look for parent name. So we're going to go to customer, parent full name. There we go. Bring that in. Okay, and then actually I can promote that if I wanted to. And then I'm going to go down and look for customer job. So customer job, where am I? There's my customer job. And I think I may have to go to customer name. Let's try this. We're going to try different ones, right? So I'm going to go to customer. There's all my jobs here, but not specifically the one I'm looking for. So customer name, I think that should be it there, customer name. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring that in, add. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and get rid of this one. So I'm just going to go to remove. Okay, so I'm looking at parent name and full name. I think that should work. Let's just double check. Let me click on apply. Yeah, that did work. So let me change the order again. So I'm putting the customer first, then the job. There we go. And then the transaction number. Okay, so that starts showing you exactly how data gets formatted here. So we have the customer's parent name, we have the job, we have the transaction number, then we have the amount. Now, inside an invoice, there could be complexities, like we can have items, we can have accounts. So what we could do is also bring items in there. So I'm going to right click on transactions on the title bar, hit properties, and then I'm going to go look for a table under my item name. So I'm going to go up to item, and then I'm going to put my item full name. So it should be called item.fullname. There we go. And then I'm going to add that in. Okay, so I'm still working on dimensions, by the way. And then the label, I'm just going to put here item. I'll make it easier. So I hit apply. So now we start seeing, right, how we start building this report with different details of information. So there we go. Okay, then I see another question from the same person. Then I guess the question is, I could do the item full name and the item sub name the same way. The answer is yes. So we could do the item parent name and then the item sub name in the case of people using sub items. Okay. Now, the other one we can add is the account. So which account is being affected here? So I'm going to right click on the properties bar, and then I'm going to look for account. So we look for account full name, and then we hit add, and then we hit apply. So again, we look for account full name, and then we click on add and then apply, and then we hit OK. So now we start seeing how this report is showing me inventory asset, it's showing me purchases, it's showing me revenues, right? So we start seeing how all the components or all the different accounts being affected within each transaction and even within each item, it's being reported here. So at this point, if I only wanted to see, for example, my revenue, okay, then I would make sure that on my accounts, in this case, where's my accounts filter? I guess I didn't run an account filter. So I'm gonna right click here and go to new sheet object and list box. You kind of start seeing, why list boxes are useful. So we're gonna do list box, and then we're gonna look for, we set the account type. So let's go to account, and then we're gonna go down to, it's called account, it should be called account type or something like that. So let's go to account type. There we go, account type, and then we hit OK. And then let's say I only want to see income. So I'm going to go ahead and click on income there. That will run the filter. So now if you can see on my current selection, it says, look, the only stuff that I'm showing you is income from invoices. Again, it sounds redundant, but invoices also contain cost information, right? So if I wanted to see just the cost of invoices in this case, I would go to cost of goods sold, and then I'm seeing just the cost side. Okay, so that's really the interesting piece of showing income or showing costs. And in this case, if I want to know the profit per invoice, per item, right, per job, the way, then what I would do is I would select income and also select cost of goods sold, select both of them, and then I would see both the revenue. In this case, I would see both the revenue and the cost. Now, if I wanted to see the profit as a net amount, not as two separate lines, then at that point I have to run a calculated field, okay, which I'll see if I have time. I don't know if I have time to do it and cover more things. Okay, so let me pause for a second and just get some questions here, because I have a feeling that there may be some questions here, and I'll for a minute take a look at the questions if you don't mind. So we'll take a little bit of a rest here. Okay, somebody's asking about a commissions report. All right, so this is one of my major goals, is that I get enough requests for commission reports in different way that on the next episode we'll do commission reports in certain ways. So commission report is going to be one of the most important topics that we're going to cover. So we're going to do next month a commissions report in different ways. Okay, and then it says, somebody says here, very powerful but very cumbersome and very technical. Yeah, that's completely true. So end users that are not power users, for sure, are not going to be able to figure this out. Let's see, can you make this an exercise so I can try it on my own? So basically, that's a good comment there. So I'm working off the sample file. So if you see, I'm actually working on the wholesale distributor sample file. So you can do this on your own if you have QuickBooks Enterprise, just to play around, and then just run, you can run the report. This is going to be recorded, so you can just follow the steps there. Let me see what else. Somebody says, how do I remove an object? Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So when you're building reports from scratch like this, one thing that you will notice is there's no like X button on these boxes to say, look, I don't need any of these things. So to get rid of elements, we're going to have to right click anywhere in the white space and click on properties. So basically, these are the properties of the dashboard itself. So we go to properties, and then we'll go to objects, and then basically these are all my active objects, so you can actually see, and you can actually go straight to properties here. So if you can't find it, you can go to here and hit properties. If you wanted to edit it for whatever reason, that's one place you can do it. But anyway, if I wanted to get rid of, let's say, all these list boxes here, or maybe just the ones I'm not using, so I'm using transaction type, I'm using account type, and I'm going to use transaction date. So let me delete that one, delete this one, delete class, delete vendors. You notice that this is how I delete all the extra boxes, and then I hit OK, and that gets rid of all these boxes, so that will give me a lot more space. Okay, perfect. Okay, let me see what other questions I have. Okay, let's see. Somebody says, is there a training guide or a full guide? Well, there kind of is a guide. So if you look at that link I sent you, which is QBAR.intuitlabs.com, there is a full reference guide in there. Let me just pull that up. Where's the link here? Okay, so right here it says Advanced Reporting User Guide. Okay, so you would download that one, and then it's actually maybe like a 30 or 40 page. It's about 30 pages. It does go and explain to you all the objects step by step. I mean, if you, at the very least, you should be reading this guide. I would probably say before even attending this webinar, it would have been really, really useful for you to read that guide. So that's under QBAR.intuitlabs.com. Again, that's on the chat box, and it will be emailed to you as well. Somebody says, does Intuit provide support for advanced reporting? You know what? don't want to answer that question because I don't want to get in trouble. So I, I say Intuit probably wants to provide support for advanced reporting. However, building reports is so extremely intricate and is so specific to the customer and is so it requires so much thinking and data analytics that I find it very difficult and unsustainable for Intuit to have a team of reporting experts on staff to be able to support it. So I would say they could probably support the installation of it. They could probably support, if it's crashing or something like that. I think that they should. I could probably promise you that that is part of the purpose, is to support you with that. But assist you in building reports, I don't know. I would say this is something that a lot of it you're going to have to you learn on your own. But I don't want to speak on Intuit's behalf. So the answer may be maybe yes. Maybe Intuit may say, yeah, sure, call us anytime. But I'm just setting the expectation up front that even when I call Intuit for support in preparation of these webinars, we get to the point that I didn't do enough prep myself on understanding what is it that I wanted to see on the report, and that caused a problem. So that basically you got to be very careful about not being prepared yourself. All right. So let's talk about managing dates now. So here on my transactions list box, right? This is my date transaction date list box. This is a really important box because advanced reporting doesn't work with date ranges the same way that QuickBooks does. And just to give you some context, any report that you run in QuickBooks, so let's say, for example, I'm doing a profit and loss detail. QuickBooks gives you a really easy to understand box in the top that says from and to. And most of us accountants or QuickBooks Power users were like, okay, that's logical. I have a date range. In advanced reporting, there's no boxes for date range. Let me switch back to the software here. No boxes for date range. So a lot of people get a little bit nervous that there's no box for date ranges. So the way date ranges work here in the transactions date, I will click on that little search box, get a little tiny magnifying glass, and then I'll put less than, in this case, I'll do 12/1/2019 or something like that. Press enter, and then basically all the transactions under that date are the ones that are going to be selected. So if I wanted to do in between, then I would do, let's say, more than 12/31/2018, and then less than 01/01/2019. And by the way, this little tiny formula you see here, more than and less than put together, is actually how you do a full year. So now I know that's a little bit cumbersome, but that's how you would do it with date range. Now, why is that? Why most people are saying, well, this is kind of dumb. Why is that? Because the way the filters work, I can actually just hand pick dates like this. So I could just control click and say, look, I just want to see stuff during those specific days. And then you can, so it's a lot more powerful. Regular QuickBooks cannot do that. You can't just pick and choose the dates that you want. You either do a date range or no date range. Okay. So I find that to be maybe one of the, let's call it excuses, and why the date ranges work. The date ranges don't work that straightforward. But there's a couple of workarounds. Like, for example, there's another list box I can run here under new sheet object. There's one just for year. So if I just type year there, you'll see it. Okay. And I hit OK. Okay. So then I get my year list box. And then I can create another list box just for month. So I'm going to show you. So I right click, new sheet object, list box. And then I can just click on that and just type month, and it will show up. And then OK. So then this makes it a little bit easier, because then I don't have to do that weird date range. So I can just pick March of 2018 or 2019, okay, whatever it is. And then it would just show me those transactions for that date range, right? And then I can just run my filters again. Invoices only, income only, okay? And it really narrows down to that. So that's actually really, really powerful. The other piece is subtotaling. Subtotaling is a really, really important part of custom reports, especially with pivot tables. So I'm going to right click on the title bar, hit properties, and show you how subtotals work. So let's go to presentation, and then we're going to click on any of these dimensions or expressions here, and then I'm going to select customer parent full name, and then I'm going to click this little checkbox that says show partial sums, and then I'll click on customer name, I'll do show partial sums, and then transaction and reference number, show partial sums. And then I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And then what ends up happening is you're going to get a few subtotals based on a few conditions. Okay, so let me remove the day range here so we see everything. Okay, so for example, we have the subtotal for store 10, okay, 12,718. And then if I scroll down some more on this report, I should see also a subtotal for bakers, for my customer right here, Bakers Lightning, and then there's my subtotal. So how many layers of subtotal I want is going to be dependent on, let me go back to the title bar and properties, on how many things I show partial sums for. So if I select everything and I show a partial sum for everything, hit apply, you're going to see the most amount of subtotals here in gray, and that may be a little bit too much. So I may have gone a little bit far with the subtotals here. So maybe I don't need to do that many subtotals. So that's really where you get the control by choosing which one do you want to see a subtotal for. So I can just uncheck some of these, and then it will reduce the amount of subtotals. So subtotals are a pretty big deal when it comes to that. The other piece I want to show you is if I go to the top bar here and click properties, okay, and I'm going to click on always fully expanded again. So I'm going to uncheck that, and then I'm going to hit apply, and then I hit OK. Then I get to, this is going to reduce it to my dimensions. So to define dimensions in comparison to expressions, think of dimensions as anything that you would want to group, collapse, or expand. So just think about that. Anything you would like to group, collapse, or expand, that would be the best way to show dimensions. And the way you're seeing dimensions now, you're seeing them in the context of rows. Now, you can also do columns as dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and right click here and do properties. And then I'm going to show always fully expanded again. And then I'm going to go back to my dimensions. And then let's see if I can skip one of these. I'm going to go ahead and skip account full name, remove that. And then I'm going to go into create one new expression for year. So I'm going to go into my list here, look for year. And that's going to be under my transaction date calendar table. And then I'm going to select year. So again, under my table fields, I clicked on transaction date calendar, and then I clicked on year. And then I'm going to click on add. Okay, so I'm adding year as one of my dimensions, and then I hit apply. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove my year filter from here. That way I'm seeing all years, so I could potentially see 2018 and 2019 transactions. It looks like all of my transactions are 2019 anyway, so maybe year wasn't a good idea. Let's start with year, and then I'll switch to month before we finish the webinar here. So I'm going to grab that title, I'm going to drag it to the right until I see that blue line turn horizontal. Basically, I'm telling it that I'm doing this by year. Okay, so then I'm grouping this dimensions by year, and then I can do the same thing for months. So I'm going to right click and hit properties, and then I'm going to again, this is my year dimension. I'm going to now go into my transaction date calendar, and let me do quarter. Quarter is probably best. So I'm going to bring quarter in, okay, because this sample file may not have more than a year worth of data. So I'm going to do quarter and then hit apply. And then I have to make sure that my dimensions are organized accordingly, and they are. Let me drag this a little bit to the right. And then you start seeing the information being dimensioned or grouped by quarter. Okay, being grouped by quarter. So if I get rid of, for example, my transaction and item level dimensions, we're going to start appreciating the usefulness of these columns a lot more. So I'm going to go to the item full name, and instead of removing it, just a quick tip, if you want to temporarily hide it, we're just going to click on enable conditional and put a 0. This is just a really kooky, strange way to temporarily hide the dimension. That way I don't have to remove it and then go find it again. So enable conditional 0, I hit apply. Okay, and now we're seeing now the sales grouped and organized by year, by quarter, by customer job in this case, right? So if I wanted to also get rid of my customer job, I can go to properties here, and then I can either just go to my customer job here and do enable conditional 0, or I can go back to my presentation here and remove always fully expanded, and then just manually expand the ones that I want to see or the ones that I don't want to see. And I can also expand and collapse my quarter. So, I mean, you can tell it's extremely powerful. The amount of information that you can pull in the dimension. In other reports and examples, we talked about doing by rep, by country, by city. I mean, there's just a lot of power. What I wanted to just show you is how to build reports from scratch with just standard accounting data that is on QuickBooks. Now, the last piece I'll show you is this little Excel button here. So as you can imagine, right, that Excel button, what it does is essentially sends the table over to Excel in the same summary you had it for. So if you had it expanded, it will export it expanded to Excel. If you had it collapsed, it will export it collapsed to Excel. All right, let's see if I have any other questions before I wrap this up, because I know it's top of the hour. So let me check what other questions we have. And again, if I didn't get a chance to answer your question, please join the Facebook group and start the discussion there, because I prefer, you can email me your request too, but it may be a lot faster for us to have multiple people collaborating with this. Okay, somebody says, so can you limit the results to only show information that doesn't have zeros? Yes, so it is possible for you to run a filter that doesn't show zeros, or only over a positive amount or only a negative amount. Somebody says, how did you pull the data out of QuickBooks? Not sure what you meant, Patty. So that may be out of the scope of this presentation, but there should be. There should be. Somebody says, how much should we charge to build reports for our clients if I start reporting? Well, that's up to you. I'm charging the average of $250 an hour to build reports, but that's really up to you, and I don't want to set a standard here. So I really don't want to really tell you, I mean, this is what I charge, but in average, it's about 2 hours to build a custom report. So this could be a very lucrative business if you're in the report building business. Somebody says, can I save this and email it to your customer so they can access? Good question. So if your customer doesn't have QuickBooks Enterprise, they're not going to be able to pull this on their own. So assuming you're an accountant or a consultant doing this, so you would have to print this into PDF or export it to Excel if you wanted to do that. Now, if you want to send it to your client that does have QuickBooks Enterprise, then what you would do is you click on Reports, and then you click on Share. Okay, and then you give it a name. So let's call it, invoices, subtotal, whatever you want to call it. And then we would save that into your computer somewhere, right? Let's say in the desktop. And then you would just email that file to that client, right? And then that client would open up Advanced Reporting, click on Reports, click on Import. Then they would select the file that they're importing, and then it would just load it in for them, okay, including all the calculations. And then when they click on Reports List, it would now be this one, invoice the subtotal is now part of my reports list because it's been saved, it's been imported, whatever. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here. Let's see. How did you do the year tricks to subtotal by year? Okay, Karen, so real quick, I mean, this will be recorded and we're almost done here. So to subtotal by year wasn't really a trick. we actually went to properties here, and then under dimensions, we made sure that one of our dimensions was year. Okay, and then once we brought the dimension in, we just made sure that year wasn't part of my my vertical dimensions the way these are here, right? So we made sure that these are, let me just fully expand these. Let me go to invoice and let me remove the filter. So let me just fully expand these to show, whoops, I keep clicking on the filter. So click on there and there, okay? So her question was, how is it that you were able to subtotal by year? What I did is I made sure that that year wasn't a row dimension, that is in this case a column dimension. So I just have to click and drag until that little arrow turns horizontal like that. Same thing with quarter. I click and drag the quarter like this until that becomes horizontal. So that's the answer to your question, Karen. That's what I did. Let's see what else we have here. You something about, oh, okay, somebody, okay, so clarification to how you get it to Excel. You basically click on that little tiny Excel box. I know it's hard to read. It's on the top right of the report, the little Excel button. That's how you get it to Excel. Okay, let me see what other questions we have. How do you market this service? Wow, that's a good question. Well, I do videos on it, right? I write articles about it, and when people are looking for it, they end up calling me about it, I guess. But I don't know how to answer that question. Would love a hands-on 2 to 3 day training on this. Uh, uh, yeah, I guess the only one that I know of, it's going to be at the Bahamas next week, next Wednesday. Otherwise, I mean, you have to look for a local consultant that would do something like that for you. How many hours does it take to build a report in average? Okay, so I'll tell you, in my experience, the first report that you do once you have experience will take you about an hour, hour and a half, and then you have to at least factor in another hour to hour and a half to making tweaks, because a lot of times the person requesting the report doesn't really know what they want, and then they'll describe it to you and you think you understand, and then you pull the report and you realize that it's not complete, so you may have to build in some slack, to go back and tweak it some more. Let's see, if the client doesn't have QBAR, could I export this as a pivot table so they can expand and collapse in Excel? No. So if you need that, then you have to just build a report like this with pivot tables. If you go to my YouTube channel, I explain how to do pivot tables from QuickBooks data, but has nothing to do with QBAR. Somebody says, can you create a filter for fiscal years? Wow, great question. I think it's just transaction year, not fiscal year. But you could, I mean, because of the power of advanced reporting, you could run a formula. You could run a formula that says if the year, if the month is between this month and this month, make it this year. I mean, I don't see how that would be impossible. I just don't. There isn't one, Sandra, right off the bat that we can do. So let's see what else. What are the questions? I think I'm done answering the questions, surprisingly. Is there a setting that would, I'm not sure, that would evoke in order to be able to see other attendee questions? No, so we can't see other attendee questions. I'm the one that has to say them out loud. Let me see what else we have here. I'm getting some questions that are very specific to maybe your data set, so I don't know how I can answer that. So I would say, join the Facebook group, ask the questions there. For all of you that attended live, you're gonna get an email with the recording. Hopefully I hit the recording button. Just kidding. Yes, I did. You will get an email with a recording. Email me if you have special cases, and if it's something that I can get done by next webinar, I'll do it and maybe feature it in your feature your case in the next webinar. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. This is Hector Garcia from Enterprise.expert. I will see you or talk to you next month.